Good morning. My background was in film and television design. I'd worked for London Weekend, Yorkshire Television, doing television graphics in a different lifetime. Worked for production companies, producing and directing mostly corporate stuff, ran BT's audio visual unit up at Martlesham. And then in the late 90s, well I suppose the early 90s actually, BT were getting rid of everybody and I was looking for other work. I started doing military historical advice for film, TV and theatre work, which is one of those things that you kind of fall into accidentally and quite enjoy doing. In 2001, the BBC did a series called The Trench, where we took 25 fellas from Hull, and they ended up having to live in a trench system for a whole month. It was probably the only really true piece of reality television anyone's ever made. And having been taken on as the advisor, I said to the BBC, where are you going to get all the gear? Oh, we'll hire it. I said, but you can't. For what you want to do, these people need stuff that's hardware, and it's got to be new stuff. They're going to have to live in it, eat in it, breathe in it, 7 days a week for 5 weeks. I said, if you're interested, 2 of us will set up a company and we'll either do all of it or none of it. And the deal is we'll hire it to you for whatever it costs us to buy it or have it made, and in the end we'll have it all back for free. And they said that would be an outrageous use of licence payers' money. We're not going to set you up in business. I said, fine. And a week later they were back on the phone and said, we can't get any of this, get on with it. And all these years later, here we are, Khaki Devil. We provide, I mean, it is literally a one-stop shop, if that's what you want. We do all the uniforms, all the equipment, all the weapons, all the props, historical advice. We have a separate company called Devils in Khaki, which provide military film extras who are trained in whatever period it is that you're doing. And whole teams of people. We've got tame armourers, special effects guys. So, because what I'd realised, having worked in television since the 90s, was that certainly television had smaller and smaller budgets. Every year it gets less and less money. So they're certainly looking for ways of really being able to come to one location and do everything there with the minimum amount of fuss and the smallest possible crew. The biggest problem we have in Suffolk is that we are in Suffolk. It's the endless battle, as you already heard. The fact that the first thing every producer says is we need a location within the M25. And the battle I always have is persuading the art department or the production designer to come up here and see what we've got. Because having got all the rest of the services, people kept saying to us, well, now we want somewhere to film it. And to begin with, we would find ourselves travelling off all around the country, building trenches, first wall trenches, most common things, first wall, more than anything else, actually. So we'd drive up to North Yorkshire because Blue Peter wanted us to build a trench in North Yorkshire. We'd spend 3 days filming it, 3 days building it, 2 days filming it, 1 day bulldozing it, then drive back home with all the bits. I just thought, this is mad. What we need to do is to have somewhere near us that we can build and then people come here. And about 10 years ago, I said, right, I had enough of this, let's find somewhere. So I drew an arbitrary ring around Ipswich and by a long set of circumstances eventually found a place at Akenham, which is just on the outskirts of Ipswich. And we've been there ever since. And it is crucial because if I can get the production designers to come and have a look, then it'll sell them immediately. Because we even had Downton Abbey here, we made series 2 of Downton Abbey, and Donal Woods, who was the production designer, who I'd worked with before on All the King's Men many years ago, he spent 5 minutes with us and said, you know, even with all the money we've got, we couldn't build anything like this. All we could build is a tiny little bit of trench. This just gives us so much more option. And that's a really, really important thing. The more times that we can actually get them here and look at it, they realise it's got no man's land, it's got a bit of German trench, it's got British trenches, it's adaptable, we can alter it, it's weathered, so it doesn't look like it was built by the art department yesterday. No man's land have shell holes which have all grassed in and have fresh ones then dug over the top every time, so it actually looks like it's been there 2 or 3 years. Again, not that it was dug yesterday. So that's the battle. The other battle is persuading them to come, especially if it's a production that needs a big crew. The BBC at the moment have just finished filming a series called The Ark, which is based on the story of a bunch of nurses in a First World War base hospital. And they'd been up to Suffolk. We were desperately trying to persuade them to come here. Not that, I mean, they wanted to build a hospital, so I think they were talking to Bentwaters and other places about setting it here. But in the end, the thing that defeated us was the fact that they could get almost the entire crew from Bristol because there's so much filmmaking and television making in Bristol, and therefore they didn't have to pay any crew to stay overnight. So in the end, I've been getting out to Wiltshire on a weekly basis to do historical advice rather than just sort of trundle up the road a few miles. But that's one of the things, and that's something that we're not going to overcome. But what we have found is that if you have something unique, something that makes it worth their while coming, and can give all sorts of add-ons and bolt-ons to that service, then they'll definitely find the time and the energy and the money to come here. The other big battle is the cost of crews and the cost of extras. And again, by setting up our own company with extras, we're in a position where we can say we can provide guys with uniforms, with equipment, with the weapons, with the right haircuts, who know all the drills, so you aren't paying separately for all these parts of it. And again, that has been a very powerful tool to stop certainly some BBC productions going and being shot in Poland. The big problem that we had was that television didn't get tax breaks in the UK, whereas film did. And in the year which included us filming Private Peaceful, we got Peaceful as a film, but we lost Birdsong, the television production, we lost Parade's End. 2 years previously, we'd lost My Boy Jack with Dan Radcliffe to Ireland, to Hungary, and to Belgium. And in the November, after Peaceful had finished shooting, we went to the Remembrance Day surface on Christchurch Park, and afterwards, at the Tea and Buns in Christchurch Mansion, Tracy, who works with us, buttonholed Ben Gummer, the MP, and said, "This is ridiculous. All of this, Peaceful have brought an enormous amount of money, over £2 million, directly into the local economy here. And yet, look at what we've lost just because of your crazy tax rules." And in one of those very rare occasions where you think actually MPs do what you ask them to do, a couple of months later, George Osborne stands up and actually quotes word for word what Tracy said. We've lost Birdsong to Romania, we've lost Parade's End to Belgium. This is a ridiculous state of affairs, and we're going to bring this to an end. And they did. So hopefully now that we'll see more television work not coming just to us, but to other places in the region too. And again, it's all about seeing the opportunity. When Guy first contacted us, he only contacted us to talk about equipment, because quite frankly, there isn't anybody else who actually does the full service like we do. So having rung up Tracy and said, "Oh, I'm looking for First War equipment," she said, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, we're making this film with Private Peaceful." She said, "Oh, do you want to come and have a look at the trench?" "Oh, didn't know you've got a trench." So we managed to draw him up here. And then when they came back for another visit with the director, Tracy said, "While you're here, do you want to just come and have a quick wander around Suffolk and maybe look at other potential places?" Because the original plan was to shoot the military stuff with us and then shoot the rest of the Devon scenes in Devon. And Tracy had been doing her homework and gone and looking at different places and thinking, well, that looks just like the Peaceful schoolroom, and this looks just like so-and-so and this. And it was enough of a hook to persuade them to come and move the entire shoot up here. Because the really big thing to all productions, it's always about moving unit bases and transport. And once they've actually got set up, then they really want to stay for the long haul. And over the last 10 years, 12 years I suppose now, we've done incredibly well here. Most of the major dramas, documentaries, a couple of films have been shot using facilities just on the outskirts of Ipswich. With the centenary of the First World War coming, our First War side is busier than ever. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, it's just been almost non-stop. We've had 4 productions, I think, in the last 2 weeks, including the BBC, who've shot a lot of their centenary stuff with us. And at the moment, they're shooting a promo trailer to actually promote that, which they came in actually, to be honest, for a 2-minute shoot, they actually brought more gear, more wagons, more cranes, more pyros, more everything else than actually we'd actually used for any of the rest of the stuff that they'd been making, and all of that just for a 1-day shoot for a 2-minute promo. So it is working. It is possible to get here, to actually bring those productions to this part of the world. But it does take effort. They won't just come just if you just sit back and wait for them to knock on the door. You actually have to go looking for it. We're very lucky now. We've got a reputation for doing what we do. And word spreads, people within the industry know to come to us and know that the job that we'll do, what we give you is historical accuracy for free. You don't need to pay for that. If you want to do it properly, we'll do it properly. And that has made an enormous difference. The fact that costume designers, the costume designer for Private Peaceful, a lovely lady called Anusha, I picked her up from Ipswich Station the first time I met her, and she said, she just got in the car and said, "Hi, I'm Anusha, pleased to meet you. You're doing all the military. I'm not touching it, darling." And she didn't. And after we'd shot the civilian stuff, which had a little bit of military, for the last 3 weeks she said, "No point in me being here, it's all army stuff, I'm going home." Because she trusted us to do the job properly. And I think that is something, if you can actually offer something that nobody else is doing, and offering a really great service, and show them that actually the cost of coming and bringing your crew here, and especially using local crew, then that actually can and will save you a lot of money in the long run. Thank you very much.